This is a VR to StreeterBoyzOutdoors YouTube. I'll have a link to his channel. If you're not subbed to him, go sub him up. You might want to check out some of his videos. You had asked me what's a good affordable tent when you've done your review on your pad. And that's a loaded question. I mean, I did go and take a look at your weather. Your weather does get pretty cold in the winter. You do get snow. There's a lot of things to consider, and also depends on your backpacking experience. And that's a big thing. Let's understand wintertime, and let's understand what it can do to you. There's a YouTuber called Shrug or whatever. If you type in Shrug hammocks, I'm sure you'll find him. He will use a hammock system, and he will camp in minus 40 below. Most people would think that's impossible, but he does it. Now, he has made mistakes. I've seen it where he's gotten frostbite on his ears. It happens. And he's got quite a setup. When he's laying in his hammock, he even makes this bib thing, because when you breathe, the sweat from your breathing, the hot air, creates droplets and gets all over your, well, would get all over his quilting system. So he built that to prevent that. In the wintertime, moisture is death. Just like cotton is death. And you have to remember that. Now, being that you're a large guy, I'm also, I wouldn't say large, but I mean, I'm overweight. I weigh 230, and I'm 5'10". But when you are fat, basically, you're going to sweat more when you exert yourself more. That's just the way it is. And that's death, when you're sweating like a dog. You have to consider that when you're overweight. I would say, as an overweight backpacker, you have to consider, how do you clean the sweat off your body first. So let's say you walk, say you walk 5 miles and you get to where you're at. You're probably going to be soaking wet. Make sure you're wearing one shirt, that you can hang up and dry out. Take a backpacking towel and wipe yourself off and dry yourself off good. Now, I take with me a pair of long johns and a top, which is what the armed forces wear, and I wear that. It feels like fleece. It feels really comfortable. Now, I wait until I'm cooled off. I'll sit and I carry an ultralight chair. I will sit on my chair and I will cool off and just let my body come down so it stops sweating. Now, once you manage that, now you're at the perfect setup of, okay, we're not going to set ourselves up to die here. Now, you notice I put the specs of the Nemo hammock, the Nemo pad compared to your pad. Your pad you picked up $50. The Nemo, what did I say it was? I can't even remember. A couple $100. But you notice the difference in the weight and how warm it actually keeps you. The ground is death. When you're in a hammock without quilts under you, is death. And anybody can go camping in the summer. Anybody. And you can pick up pads all over the place all day long for $30, $50, just something to be comfortable on and to keep your back from hurting. But it's more than that in the winter. In the wintertime, you're not only worried about how comfortable you're going to be on the mat, but it's more or less how much radiant heat is it bouncing back, and is it keeping the cold out. And everything's about the materials they put inside and how it actually works. Now, Nemo pads I love to death. I bought one for my dog. I bought her a summer pad, which goes down to 30, I believe, 30 Fahrenheit. And the reason for that is because she's a German Shepherd. She's got lots of hair. She would probably sweat if I bought her the other one. Where with me, I don't have all this German Shepherd hair, so I went with a more expensive pad. Now, once you got your pad, okay, I've got the heat coming up. Really, there ain't much you're keeping warm on the top of your body. And it's really just the top of your body. When you get into, let's say I buy an expensive sleeping bag for $500, and it's got this much insulation in the bottom. As soon as I lay on that and squash that, I no longer have any insulation. What's actually keeping me warm is the pad, not the sleeping bag. The sleeping bag keeps me warm what's on top of me, not what I'm laying on. So keep that in mind. So a quilt system, where you put your foot inside a foot box and it's not going to come off, and you got nothing on your back at all. And you lay on top of that pad, you're completely fine. Now, some people, their Big Agnes even makes a sleeping bag where the pad slides into the sleeping bag. I have one of those too, which is nice. So that way, if you roll around inside your sleeping bag, your pad's not going to come out from underneath you. You may prefer that type of system, where you buy the pad to go inside the sleeping bag and there's nothing in the bottom of the sleeping bag. When you buy a tent, here's a tent here. Why do we want a tent? Well, this is made by Durston, and this is a 2-person tent. Weighs a little over 2 pounds, and it fits my German Shepherd and me perfectly fine. I'll have a link in the bottom. You can go check this out. I'll have a couple links where you can check out this tent. Runs about $300, I think, and you put it up with trekking poles. Now, being that you are heavy set, I would really suggest you use trekking poles if you're going to use a backpack and walk, for the simple reason of, if you twist an ankle with that much weight on your ankles and you go down, you're going to do some pain to yourself. Okay? Or go down the side of a mountain. I mean, when you got yourself some trekking poles and you lose your balance or you twist your ankle really good, those trekking poles will hold you up and prevent you from really hurting yourself further. Now, at the same time, when you're going downhill, you will find those trekking poles to be quite nice. So basically, the trekking poles are used with the tent to set up the tent. Now, do you need a tent? I mean, I looked up your temperatures there. Pretty cold. You get snow. Here in Tennessee, we really don't. You could rent a tarp. Be quite honest with you. If I was trying to save money and I was concentrating on where you live, and I was thinking, okay, where can I put my money for the most bang for my buck, it would be in the pad. It would be in that Nemo pad I suggested to you. A pad is it. There's no affordability. That's it. It's got to be a winter pad. And then I would go probably into, like I would use a quilt, but again, that's personal preference where you can go to sleeping bag. And it always works under the way of weight to price ratio. You know, the more heat, the more money. The less it weighs, the more money. I mean, just the way it is. But I would concentrate just on those two things, a pad and a good sleeping bag or a quilt, and that's it. If you got those two things, you can camp the winter. You can buy a cheap tarp and then run a tarp. You don't necessarily have to use a tent unless that makes you feel better. You could take 2 tarps with you in case one broke. Little extra line. Stay away from paracord. It's too heavy. Look for stuff called Zing It, and there's other different lines out there that you can use for tarps that'll make it a whole lot lighter and make the pack a whole lot more enjoyable. So really, that's all you're concentrating on. Now, when I go with this tent, for example, this one, I like room. Okay, I like a lot of room. So when I pull my dog into this tent and me into this tent, I have room to light my stove. I have room to light a meal. If it's pouring rain, if it's sleeting, this tent will do it. And it's kind of nice. Now, I don't actually cook inside this tent because the tent itself comes down and then it has what they call a vestibule. Basically, it's like a little latch, I don't know, it's got a thing coming out where you're outside where you can put your pack or your boots and you're not bringing your muddy boots inside your tent. And normally that's where I set everything up and then I'll cook from there. So that I kind of like. But for a tarp, you can do the same thing. I mean, a tarp, you're on the ground. You do need something to put under your pad. A lot of people use, I don't know, a couple different things that they put underneath their pads. That's super cheap. It's not expensive. And it's, if the ground gets wet, it just it's protecting everything from getting soaking wet. And that's just what they're doing. But you should concentrate on the pad and the sleeping bag or a quilt, depending on which system you go with, those two things. Don't be looking at expensive titanium dishes. Don't be looking at all these other fancy doodads. Don't be doing that. Okay, concentrate on a nice light shelter system that will keep you warm and not put your life in danger. When you go below zero, 32 Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, that's when life gets real quick. And if you don't have the proper equipment, you could hurt yourself. And that's the other thing. And also understand that being you are a bigger guy like me, and you come across some mountain you got to climb, don't be in a hurry. You don't want to have a heart attack. Take your time. Climb part way, put your back up against a tree, take a break if you have to. And the more you go out, the better you'll get and the stronger you'll be and the stronger your legs will be. I mean, because at first, your legs aren't as strong and neither are your ankles because of what you're pushing. Like you said, you weighed, what, 250, 300? And then if we drop a 20-pound pack on you, well, look how much more weight we're adding to your knees is to consider. So I'd really suggest you start out, a mile here, a mile there, going for walks around your house, getting used to walking before you even think about that. I would even consider putting your pack on after you've gotten used to that and then doing that. I know everybody thinks it's not a big deal. They think, hey, I'm just going to throw this pack on and go walk 10 miles. It's not what it is. Even at my weight at 230 pounds, when I go out, and sometimes it'll be 5 months before I go out. I hate camping in the summer. It sucks in Tennessee. The bugs are so bad, the humidity. I mean, you basically are just walking around soaking wet the whole time. I hate it. So I don't go out for a long time. I have to take my pack, go out to the park, and do 2 miles around the park, and get myself used to it again. You don't want to go out there and twist an ankle and go down a hill with a pack on, and next thing you know, it hurts yourself really bad. But if it's wintertime and you're really trying to go toward the idea of camping in the winter, don't think affordable. Think what will keep me comfortable and what will not cost me my life. Because that's not something to mess with when you start going below 0 and 32 Fahrenheit degrees. And for God's sakes, whatever you decide to pick up, whatever pad or whatever, test it in your backyard before going out. Don't go out until you test it. I've tested my equipment as low as minus 20 Fahrenheit, and I have found quirks in it I had to fix. So really think about that and testing everything in your backyard before going out. Because you have to think, when it's wintertime and it's cold, you can fall asleep and not wake up. You literally just go into a deep sleep and drift off if it's too cold. It's very, very dangerous. And if you do it in your backyard and all of a sudden, you don't come in for an hour or 2 hours, or you want somebody to keep an eye on you. You want somebody, your wife or whatever, to walk out and say, you all right? Yeah, I'm okay. All right. Make sure and if all of a sudden your wife walks in and says, hey, you okay? And you don't answer, then tell her to come in there and smack you in the head a few times and get your butt in the house, because you've gone into that slumber of danger is what you've done. And that's for sure. Wintertime is very, very dangerous, especially when you go out when it's really, 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 really cold, is what it is. There's been a lot of guys that I've gone backpacking with that will not sleep at night because their gear just won't do it. They'll literally sit around a fire running a big fire, and they'll go to sleep during the daytime when the temperatures come back up in the 40s. Okay? And they've done that. You don't want to be in that position. So when you're thinking affordable, get out of that word. You're talking wintertime. Wintertime is death. And if you don't have the money right now to buy a better pad or to buy a good quilt or a good sleeping bag, wait. I don't care if you got to wait a year. Wait. Check out some used places. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. You're not looking at, there's a lot of people out there that sell things that you'd be surprised. You might just come across a Nemo pad. And I bought that pad simply because of the warmth and, like you, comfort. I don't want to lay on my side and feel myself pressing into the ground. Everything has a balance. I want that 3 inches of loft. I want to feel comfortable, or else you're not going to sleep very good. A lot of guys will go backpacking and they'll only sleep for they'll buy a half pad and only keep their core warm. They'll take their backpack, throw it on the ground, and put their legs on it, where the pad is being used for the core. They are cutting ounces every which way they can. Don't do that. Cover, basically think safety until you get the experience you need. Winter camping is not something to be joking around about. It needs a lot of practice in the backyard, it needs the right gear, and just by buying, let's say, this Dan Durston tent, it'll help. It'll bring, a few degrees, bring it up 10 degrees, but it's not going to be the all give all to everything. Now, you can buy pyramid tents that have a stove in them, and they're 5-6 pounds, but you have to process wood and feed that stove constantly. They're made out of titanium, and depending on how big the stove is, determines your burn rates. So let's say you're filling up your stove, you get 2 hours, and then it runs low. So then you got to open your eyes, shove some wood in it, close your eyes. 2 hours later, wake up, shove some wood in it. It's a pain in the butt. But you're not going to die. You're going to stay warm. Because as soon as you get cold, you'll wake up. But and that's why people try to buy bigger stoves. But when you buy bigger stoves, you get into more weight. You get a 3-hour burn time. They're trying to get more sleep. And I've never liked that. I've never liked that at all. When I go to sleep, I want to do 6 hours plus. So I spend the money on a really good quilt, like $500, boom, because I know that quilt is going to keep me warm. Same thing applies to a very good sleeping bag, a very good quilt. I don't need a fire. I don't even have to start a fire. I mean, literally, I can get to my campsite, set up with my Dan Durston tent. I'm set up in less than 5 minutes. I even carry a ultralight chair with me because I don't like sitting on the ground. And that weighs a little over a pound. And I'll sit in the chair, cool off, pull my shirt off, hang it up on the line. I'm trying to cool my body down. I take a camp towel, wipe myself down so that way I'm dry, no sweat. And once all that's done, I put on a pair of long johns on the top, and now I can climb into my, my pad and my sleeping bag and off my quilt, and then basically I'm ready to go to sleep for the night. You want to keep that nice, comfort, warm feeling, but not sweating, not wet, is what you want. And you'll find it's a lot more safer and comfortable. And that's the biggest thing with winter camping. But please be very careful if you're going to do winter camping and you haven't done it before. Practice, practice, practice in your backyard, not just one night, multiple nights. Make sure whatever gear you decide to buy will do it. And that's the best I can tell you. But please be safe and don't get crazy and think, I can do it all. And you're going to find out real quick you can't. I would say the majority of your preppers out there have no idea what it's like to sleep in the wintertime. The majority have not done it. And, or that they'd probably show you some gear if they have. But they don't know what they're doing. So if something was to happen in that situation and they were forced to leave their house, the majority of them would probably end up with frostbite, cutting fingers off, earlobes. I mean, it would be actually ridiculous what would end up happening that they have no idea with because they haven't practiced it. So if you are going to practice it, hey, good for you. It can be a lot of fun, but like you said, it's a lot of the gear is expensive, and it's hard to get when you're on a minimum income. And it is much better to wait and get the good stuff than the crappy stuff. But if you're going to camp like a little in the fall, a little in the summer, a little in the spring, well, you got there, that pad will work fine. But if you want to get into deep, deep winter stuff like I'm seeing there, oh no, you're going to have to spend some money. But I'll let you have a look at this tent. I love this tent. I use it in the summer all the time when I do go, which ain't too often, but when I do go. It's a Durston X-Mid 2-person tent is what this is. Weighs a little over 2 pounds. Keeps me and my dog safe and keeps the bugs off us. And he is supposed to bring out some type of inner thing to go inside this year or next year from what I heard, which is apparently supposed to make it completely windproof because wind just sucks the heat out of your body. So that will be pretty cool when he does. I'll definitely be buying that if he does. I might throw him an email and find out when that's going to come out or even what the cost is going to be. But this tent is awesome, but you have to get it when it comes out on a run. They only release so many, 2,500, 5,000, and you got to get them when they release them. And once they're gone, they're gone. He's a backpacker. He's made it. It's made out of great material. It's made in Vietnam. I'll send you a couple of videos to go watch to learn more about this particular tent. I think it's around 300 when it comes out. Could be a little less. And you might even find it used somewhere where somebody's selling it. But be careful, because when you go on Amazon and you search for this tent right now, people will be listing it for $500 because there's none out there. So people have bought the tent, they put it aside, they knew it was going to run out. And anytime on Amazon you see other sellers are selling this product, you can pretty much, it might as well say, other sellers gouging products is what that actually means. So keep your eyes open. And Dan Durston does have a website. You can sign up for when he releases these, and you'll be emailed if you want to look at an actual cool backpacking tent that doesn't cost, $800. Some of these tents, because light equals money. And the same thing applies to winter camping. Being warm and being light equals money. The lighter, the warmer, the more money. The lighter the product, the more money. I mean, that's just usually the way it gets when you start getting into some ultralight gear out there. And we would all love to run ultralight gear and have an 8-pound pack and have the best comfort we can, because that's what everybody wants to try and do. It's all balance. But when you get into the winter camping, please test in your backyard. Just don't go out and buy something and do it. It'll put your life in danger. All right, I'll catch you later. Anybody hasn't subbed to his channel, his link's in the bottom. Go sub him up. Give the guy a sub. He's trying. I like it. Catch you guys later.